In today's video, we're going to be talking about the 5 best guns to pair with a sniper in Call of Duty Warzone. Now, before you go skipping straight to number 1, I highly recommend you watch this entire video because picking these 5 in the order that I placed them was extremely difficult and the race was extremely tight. And depending on your play style, number 1 may not be best for you. Now, some factors that I considered while ranking these guns are, can it handle well in both close to mid-range engagements? Can it handle multiple enemies at once before needing to reload? And the overall gun's mobility. So starting off at number 5, we have the Cooper Carbine from Call of Duty Vanguard. The big pro of the Cooper is its extremely fast fire rate, making it a forgiving weapon if you miss a shot or two. However, the big reason it comes in at number 5 is that fast fire rate also means it's not the best for taking on multiple enemies at once with its low damage per magazine. It also has the slowest sprint to fire time of our 5 choices, meaning if an enemy pops out at you while you're mid sprint, the Cooper will take the longest to be able to bring down and start shooting. Looking at the combined shot location time to kill calculator on TrueGameData.com, the Cooper Carbine in the green line comes in number 3 for both close and long range time to kill. However, in the mid range from about 16 to 22 meters, it's actually in first place. Another big pro of the Cooper is it has very little recoil. Also in green here, the Cooper has a recoil rate of 96 pixels per second, coming in again number 3 out of our 5 choices today. So this is my recommended Cooper Carbine loadout. The big thing that I'd say that's important about it is you want to maximize its rate of fire. That's how we get the fast time to kill. So you do that with the recoil booster, the 60 round drums, and the compressed rounds. Now, you absolutely could swap the compressed for lengthened for a little bit better accuracy at range. The other thing I will say is that for any of the Vanguard guns, the underbarrel, rear grip, and stock, those are the 3 that you can usually play around with, and you can set it up more for better mobility or faster ADS, or you could set it up for better recoil control for more of a long range build. And then one last thing I will say about the Cooper build real quick is that tight grip I think is definitely the way to go. Vital basically does nothing for you. Just don't use Vital. It doesn't really work in Warzone. At number 4, we have one of my personal favorite weapons in all of Warzone, and actually the gun that I've broke my rebirth PR twice with, the Cold War PPSH. The thing about the PPSH that makes it a great sniper support is its excellent range for an SMG. So the PPSH is the dark blue line. It's kind of hidden behind this purple one. It is in basically tied with last place for the close range time to kill, but surprisingly, it has the fastest time to kill at long range, so about 30 meters and beyond. However, something to consider though about the PPSH for long range is it does have the most recoil out of all 5 of our options today here in blue, and with a recoil rate of 192 pixels per second, which is basically double the Cooper Carbine's recoil. Some other positives though for the PPSH include its 71 round mag, allowing you to take on multiple enemies, and also it has the best aim down sight strafing speed, meaning you can shoot and strafe very quickly, making it more difficult for your opponents to track you. So this is the exact loadout that I broke my rebirth PR with. One thing to note is for the optic, I'm using the Quick Dot LED bundle blueprint from the Night Raid bundle, which is a really clean optic. If you don't have this, just go with the Microflex or even the iron sights. And if you're going to use iron sights, I'd probably say go with the Bruiser grip, because it's going to help both your mobility and also your hip fire a little bit. Coming in at number 3, we have the Cold War AK-47. The AK is probably the best option when it comes to longer range engagements. So if you enjoy Caldera over Rebirth, the AK might be your ideal choice because of this. Now, the AK is here in purple in terms of time to kill and is technically in last place for close range time to kill. However, it is in second place for long range, and it does have less recoil than the PPSH, making it by far the most viable long range build. Now, the AK has a recoil rate of 127 pixels per second, which is a lot less than the PPSH, but I have this build set up for the pure kind of SMG build. So you could very easily swap an attachment, put on a field agent grip, and you're going to have a way less recoil, making it even more viable at long range. Some other things to consider about the AK is that with it being an assault rifle and not an SMG, it does come in 4th place for sprint to fire time, but it actually has the best mobility and best movement speed of all 5 choices if you run the pure SMG type movement build. So again, this is the mobility build that I was just talking about. I'll link a video of this in the description of a gameplay. This is a really fun class to run, but there's so many options you can run with the Cold War AK. The bare minimum, what I'm going to recommend is running these 3 attachments: the GRU, the 45 round, and the skeletal, because this really helps our sprint to fire time. I don't recommend the 60 because I think it makes the gun too slow. If you want a little bit more accurate build, put on the Spetsnaz grip for some recoil control, and then you could throw on an optic such as the Microflex. Or if you don't mind the iron sights, you could also put on back either the like the Tiger Team for some mobility, or you could slap on a barrel such as the Liberator or Takedown to add a little bit of range. At number 2, we have the Owen Gun SMG from Vanguard. The Owen checks pretty much all the boxes for a great sniper sport. With the combined shot location time to kill chart, it actually comes in number 1 for close range time to kill in the light blue line. Its big weakness though is at longer ranges beyond about 20 meters, comes in last place, making the Owen more favorable on Rebirth Island and possibly not as ideal on Caldera as sniper support. However, with my recommended build for it, it does come in number 1 with the least recoil at just 77 pixels per second. 2 other major pros about the Owen is its 72 round mag allows it for taking on multiple enemies before having to reload, giving it the rank number 1 spot for the most damage per magazine of today's 5 options. It also has excellent mobility, just barely behind the AK at number 2. Now, a big thing that I want to mention about the Owen is the optic. So you'll see in the highlight clips that were going in the background is I was using the M38 Slate 2.5 custom, and what this optic is it's a bigger zoom, but you can switch to a red dot. And what happens when you switch to it, it lowers the gun, getting that big mag out of your way, which normally is blocking the right side of your screen. You can also just go with a regular Slate or like the Nightjar model if that mag doesn't bother you. Now, one thing that I've mentioned in previous videos when I've done loadout videos on the Owen is the barrel. First, I was running the precision, and then I actually went no barrel because if you look at it, it says it decreases body damage. And that sounds like a terrible idea. But when I looked at it in true game data, basically it's such a small difference that it doesn't change the time to kill. And this barrel does add range, and it makes the gun feel way better in terms of lowering that recoil and making it a lot smoother to use at longer range engagements. Now, again, I like to keep the fire rate as high as possible, and that's what's going to give us the best time to kill between the recoil booster and then the 72 round drum, but we want the 7.62 version, not the 9mm. Something you'll see that I run on pretty much all of my SMG sniper supports from Vanguard is I typically will go lengthened for ammo. Now, you could absolutely go with hollow point, but that will hurt your range quite a bit. So I normally stick to hollow point when I'm pairing the SMG with an AR. Again, like I said, you can play around with the underbarrel, rear grip, and remove stock, but this is the combination that I have found best. The other thing that's really nice about the Owen is between the acrobatic and quick perk, this makes the movement really great, and this is really one of the funnest guns I think to use because of how good the mobility is. And finally, the moment we've all been waiting for. And by the way, thank you if you actually watched the entire video up to this point and you didn't just skip ahead. Yeah, talking to you, Jimmy, that you skipped straight here. You missed a lot of good information, so go back and watch the rest of the video. Sorry, got sidetracked. Okay, coming in at number 1, we have the Welgun SMG from Vanguard. Now, honestly, the race between the Welgun and the Owen is quite tight, but here's what separates it for me. First, although the Welgun is in second place for close range time to kill in the orange line, just barely ahead of the Owen in the blue, at longer ranges, the Welgun does much better and is more viable beyond 20 meters. Another thing to consider though is with the combined shot location time to kill calculator, the Owen relies on getting 2 headshots to drop the time to kill to give it the number 1 spot, whereas the Welgun does not rely on getting headshots. So if I switch it to just the chest shot location only, you'll see the Welgun actually has quite a substantial lead ahead of the Owen. Also, the Welgun has the perk Gung Ho, which allows you to shoot while sprinting, but more importantly, make sure you have a sprint to fire time of 0. This helps significantly with winning close range fights when an enemy pops out at you while you're sprinting. What I like to do is start shooting as soon as I start to aim down sight, allowing me to get a few shots on my opponent before I've even fully aimed in. Another big component that I factored in is that the Welgun has a normal optic, whereas the Owen has the mag that blocks your side of view. Yes, you can use the 2.5 custom on the Owen, but sometimes it just feels a bit weird to me, and I think the Welgun slate reflector is just more natural. As far as recoil goes, it's basically identical to the Owen at 80 pixels per second. Now, surprisingly, the Welgun does come in 5th place for mobility though, and although it doesn't feel slow by any means, that's probably its biggest weakness compared to the others. But we can make that mobility a little bit better by switching the Gawain skeletal to the remove stock. However, I prefer the skeletal because the remove move stock does hurt your recoil a little bit, making this not as viable at range. Now, the Welgun's been one of my favorite SMGs to use recently, and I run it differently when I'm using a sniper support. When it's sniper support, I always go with the shrouded barrel because that adds a lot of range, and also the 64 round mag, because that's going to give me a lot more damage per magazine. However, if you take off the shrouded and go either no barrel or like the hip fire barrel, which is another good option to run, and if you switch the 64 for the 40 round, it makes this gun have even better mobility, and you can actually make this gun the fastest mobility weapon in the game. Now, again, with all my Vanguard SMGs, I do run the recoil booster. One thing I do want to quickly mention though is if you want to go with a silencer, I'd probably say go with the MX silencer or the M1929. It is going to hurt your aim down sight speed just slightly, but it does help with recoil. And this way you're going to be suppressed and be off the minimap. So you could put something like that on, and then you could swap out, you know, like the underbarrel or the rear grip for an attachment that's going to help with your aim down sight speed. And now you're not going to be on the minimap, but your time to kill is going to be just slightly slower. And then again, my favorite perk on this is the gung ho. Although it does also have acrobatic, which you could use to have even better mobility, but in my opinion, the gung ho is worth it. Now, I do want to quickly go over a few honorable mentions that just barely didn't make the list, but I felt wrong not at least mentioning. So first, the Milano. The Milano is a super fun gun to use, and statistically its time to kill is a lot slower at close range, but every time I use it, I love using this thing because it has literally no recoil, and I find myself being very accurate with it compared to a lot of other guns. I'll link a video in the description for it if you're interested in that one. On the flip side, the Lapa SMG is a really great option. It has super high damage and a great fast time to kill, but it's got a lot of recoil. So I think it's better to pair with an AR, but if you're good at recoil control, the Lapa is a fantastic option. And then finally, just because we didn't mention a single mono warfare gun, I'd say the MP7 is probably your best bet if you want to use a mono warfare weapon. I'll have video links to both the Lapa and the MP7 in the description below as well. So let me know what you guys think about the rankings. Did I miss any? Did I put it in the wrong order? I'd be happy to hear your opinions in the comments. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and consider subscribing if you're new here. Otherwise, have a fantastic rest of your day. See you in the next one.